currently dealing with some sort of shoulder pain, whether that's pain in the front of the shoulder, the top, the back, or is it a shoulder pain that only really comes around when you're exercising or doing some sort of physical activity? Shoulder pain is a very common condition, especially in an active lifestyle. And for those of you who are dealing with shoulder pain, who want to lead a loud, active life, this is a big hindrance that really prevents you from doing a lot of stuff. So if you're interested in dealing with your shoulder pain, fixing your shoulder pain, understanding how shoulder mechanics work, and ultimately what you can do to make your shoulders more bulletproof and stronger, this is the video for you. Now, shoulders, because of the nature of the ball and socket joint, it allows for a lot of free range of motion, a lot of active range of motion. But because of that, many of us lack the basic stability that allows our body to move. Now, this is an important concept that we'll discuss throughout the video, because stability is what is needed to allow your body to express mobility, right? So oftentimes we're stretching and we're stretching and we're stretching, hoping that that will help with our quote unquote shoulder pain, when in fact it's not really getting you anywhere. Now, while stretching might be beneficial, you have to understand who, what, when, where, and why. Who would benefit from stretching? Why would you need a stretch? What are you actually stretching? And again, what's the outcome that we're trying to get out of that? Now, what you need in order to understand that is a proper assessment and an evaluation to determine the cause of shoulder pain. Now, unfortunately, this is oftentimes mismanaged through simple diagnostic procedures such as X-ray and MRI, assuming that there must be some form of a soft tissue injury or damage that is eliciting the shoulder pain that you're describing, when many times this is in fact not the case. That usually breaks down to some sort of overloading principle, whether that is an overuse injury due to improper mechanics, due to an increased load variation that you just came across, or just not using it enough. Right? So in this video, we are going to break down and show you some of the common causes of why shoulder pain might be occurring, some of the neighboring attributes such as the spine that might be contributing to why there might be some shoulder pain, and more importantly, a few things that you can do that will help the shoulder pain that you currently have, whether it is acute or chronic. Now, again, this is just a very sneak peek of what's to happen because the complexity of a shoulder issue, we really have to dive in to determine what's best for you. All right, so as we were saying in the intro to the video, shoulder pain, outside of trauma, you're going to be dealing with usually some sort of an overuse type of injury. Now, the key to determining an overuse injury is having a very in-depth conversation to detail out the programming or the load progression for whoever you're dealing with, right? So if it's someone who's doing like Orange Theory or group fitness, when did you start? Is this something newer? Did you increase your weight? Did you increase your reps? Did you increase your volume? To determine, was there an immediate spike in your loading progressions that might have just caused this more acute overuse injury. But more commonly, we see nothing really changed, but it was over months, if not years, the shoulder injury just started acting up more. So what this tells us is that there's probably some sort of a range of motion, stability, or movement discrepancy that was adding more load to a particular area over time, thus creating this overuse injury. So you have to really go through an in-depth conversation with whoever your provider is to determine what that progression might have been like to better direct you. So for the shoulder, we see a couple common areas as your main hub of where pain is. Front of the shoulder here, top of the shoulder, and then the back of the shoulder, right? And when we're looking at that, there's three usual main causes. Back of the shoulder is usually some sort of rotator cuff irritation, capsular tension, and or some sort of maybe tendonitis. Top of the shoulder and the front of the shoulder, we're going to be seeing impingement type of issues, whereas when you go to lift the shoulders, it pinches at the top here, creating a pressure on tendons or other soft tissue structures and pain. And then bicep tendon, similar, could be part of that impingement syndrome process, but we also see this as a loading discrepancy, meaning how you're pressing or loading the shoulder is causing more load to go to the bicep tendon, creating tendonitis and irritation. So with that, we're going to look at a couple different movement criteria to determine that's the case. So first and foremost, I'm going to have Rachel stand up, and we're going to look at just basic range of motion, right? We're going to have her bring her arms up overhead and look to see, does she have the adequate range of motion to be able to maybe perform an overhead press? Come back down, and then we're going to come up from the sides, right? And then we're gonna try to go all the way up to the top. Now we know Rachel's pretty flexible, but you can even see here, so thumbs coming forward, she can't go up any higher. So when we curl the thumbs back though, we clear and get more range of motion. Good, come back down. So this is actually a good conversation to have, because oftentimes when people are performing either a stretch or something that they feel to be beneficial and we're turned in, that's actually creating internal rotation of the shoulder, and that's going to enhance impingement symptoms, which could then make something worse. So we have a conversation around positioning based on the movements that you're doing. Now, another movement that we want to test is a push-up. So I'm just going to have Rachel do a push-up. You can just do it from the edge here, so your feet there, hands here. So she's just going to do an incline push-up here. So this gives me obviously a regressed format, especially if she's having pain, to look at what's her positioning in a push-up type of holding pattern, or even a plank. Perfect, stand up. Because what we see very commonly is we'll see a dump of the shoulder that creates more tension on the bicep tendon, i.e. then creating bicep tendonitis, so on and so forth. And then it becomes a very slippery slope. When you have tendonitis of the shoulder, it gets super irritated through almost anything that you do. Now, I'm gonna have Rachel go back on her hands and knees here. So here, what we talked about this with the neck pain video. And if you have not seen the neck pain video and you're dealing with neck pain, be sure to go check that out. But the neck, like the shoulders, are directly attached to the mid-back. So if we're dealing with the shoulder issue, we have to look at the thoracic spine and determine if there's movement, range of motion discrepancies, whatever that might be creating our issue. So I'm gonna have Rachel sit back towards her heels. This is a modified cat-cow. So she's gonna do cat-cow here. She's gonna round out and then extend. Now, so I'm looking at her mobility to determine, good, keep going back and forth, does she have any catching spots? Now, you might see globally it looks fine, but from an isolated perspective, we might see some areas that need either more flexion or extension. Now, what I'm gonna have her do is kind of just wag the tail. So she's gonna go side to side now, so I can see laterally how well does it flex. And then last but not least, she's gonna put one hand behind her neck and then rotate up towards the ceiling, and now we can assess rotation. While rotation and lateral flexion might not seem directly correlated to the shoulder, we have to look beyond just our basic segmental sagittal pattern and know that sports, athletics, and even just training, there's rotation and side-to-side movement involved that would affect the positioning of the shoulder. Okay, perfect. Go ahead and stand up for me. So, impingement syndrome, again, is one of the main issues that you're going to see front of the shoulder, top of the shoulder. So, when we're dealing with this, similar to our movement mapping with our shoulders, we have to teach the body what we want. More common than not, I'm going to have you actually turn behind. More common than not, because this is still over-cued, is people are telling you, people are coaching and cueing, pull your shoulder blades back and down. This is important for rows and pulling types of motion, but when we are reaching forward and up, that is actually counterproductive. If you are pulling your shoulder blade down and back, that is opposite of the direction of up and over. So the main issue with impingement syndrome is there's this bar from the shoulder blade that comes out and makes the AC joint, which is basically the shoulder blade and the clavicle coming together. This is the roof that creates impingement syndrome. So if you lock this down and you're trying to take this up, you're basically just smashing the head of the humerus up into the roof. So if you've been dealing with some sort of form of chronic shoulder pain, you've kind of just at a management level, it's like, hey, I can do most of these things, but there's certain things I just don't want to do, but you want to get back to those, please feel free to reach out to us. I know these tools will help in the short interim of helping with this kind of immediate pain, but shoulders, being as complex as they are, you really have to set up a framework and a progressive loading pattern to gain more confidence around various positions that are more challenging. So we'd love to be able to help you out with dealing with that shoulder issue that you've had for maybe even years. And if you feel like that's something that you want to be able to do to get back to all those activities, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to help you.